Hi everyone. We'll start. I've got the thumbs up to start. Welcome. If we could get my slides up, that would be great. Hi. Today I'm going to talk to you about something called direct publishing. This is something that my colleague Tom and I have been working on for about a year. This is Tom sitting at the side here. And it's really one of those things that we came across where we got very excited by it, and we wanted to share some of the potential opportunities that there are for news and journalism industry. And so today is about sharing kind of what we've learned and highlighting some of the opportunities. And we've managed to create a demo. I'm not going to do a live demo because that is the road to disaster. So I've got everything prepared to talk you through. But after the session, out and about around the town, you're more than welcome to grab me and have a look at what I've been showing you on my phone, or set up a time to talk about it. So I'm Fergus Bell. I'm the co-founder of Fathom, and we're a news lab, agency, and consultancy based in the UK. We work with newsrooms all around the world, and we work on anything from newsroom transformation to verification and misinformation work, countering misinformation, as well as developing some tools and some products. So I really wanted to start by talking about how news on mobile needs to change. I don't think that is a surprise to anyone, that sometimes the experience of a reader is not optimal. It can be a bit poor. This is a particularly bad and unfair example that I've got on the screen. I did check, and it has much improved. But it used to look like this, and in a lot of occasions it still does. Also, when you are sharing news on mobile or consuming news on mobile, data is owned by third parties who suck up all the monetization opportunities, and there is an increasing or an ongoing reliance and dependence on social networks for distribution. It's not been sustainable for a while, and it's not been a level playing field for a while. This is why we wanted to talk about the role of messaging and the opportunities that it provides. So I've got a few quotes on the screen. But I think the most important thing is the headline, actually, which is everybody uses messaging apps every day. If anyone has not used a messaging app today, then I would be very surprised. It is the app that everyone uses. It comes pre-installed on devices. You do not have to download anything. It is already there on your phone. As Mark Zuckerberg says, messaging is one of the few things that people do more than social networking. And there was some research by Gartner that says by 2025, 80% of customer service organizations will have abandoned native mobile apps in favor of messaging for better customer experiences. And then to make it relevant to journalism, the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism, in their 2021 Digital News Report, identified a gap of over 40% between overall usage of messaging apps and their usage for news. So we start with this question, really. If messaging apps are among our audience's most used apps, why, as the news and journalism industry, are we not doing more to engage them there? And this is a question that, when we started to see the developments in messaging technology, we continue to ask ourselves, why is this not a focus? And I think previously it couldn't be a focus because it was clunky. It wasn't a very good experience. No one wanted to read news by, a few characters in a text format. But things have moved on so much since then. So we wanted to give all of the technology, all of the new formats a name. And the name direct publishing is something that we've come up with. We mean for it to encompass the technology, the platforms, the processes, all come together to create an experience that is direct between a journalist or a news publisher and their audience. It's free of algorithmic influence. There's no external audience of bad actors who can get involved. But we're not just talking about text messaging, we're not just talking about bots, we're talking about something that is a lot more. The other thing that we need to make sure of when we talk about direct publishing is that we're not focusing so much on the technology. No one should ever consume an editorial product and be thinking really about the technology that they're consuming it on. They should be focusing on the journalism and that editorial product. The news and journalism is the product. So to just kind of break that down, what we're talking about with direct publishing is something that is conversational and contextual news. It's delivered individually, but it is distributed at scale. So I will explain a lot more what I mean by that. And then to just kind of double back on that issue of technology, we want to create a seamless experience. So we don't really want to have our audiences hear the word, message us on WhatsApp or message us using this number on this device and this number on this device, or access this conversational product for us here. The most common thing that people are used to when it comes to conversational news is WhatsApp. But what we would like to see is this kind of seamless experience where your audience is interacting with your publication regardless of, across many different apps, whatever is on their phone, the easiest, or if they're on their desktop, but basically they know, oh yeah, I can just connect with them here, and they're not really thinking about that change between the apps. So I wanted to break down, there's some technology that I need to kind of get out the way to explain to you first. So I want to just ask, has anyone in this room heard of RCS? Just raise your hand if you have. 2 people. Okay. So hopefully you're all going to have heard of RCS by the time you leave here. So RCS is the new messaging standard that replaces SMS. If you think of SMS as version 1, and that's just the regular text message that you used to get on your phones, on those old Nokia phones where you were typing with the numbers to get the letters, like that's SMS. Then MMS came along, and that was that exciting moment where you could send a photo over text message. That was the next kind of protocol upgrade. What we're now at the point of is the introduction and the extensive rollout of RCS, which is the 3rd iteration of this standard. So it is a standard. It's not owned by anyone. But it is currently enabled on Android phones. So on almost all Android phones, and it will be the standard that Google adopts for text. The difference between regular text messaging is that you have rich graphics, you can have carousels, you can have video, you can have audio, you can create an interaction, all within an app that everyone already has, and you can monetize it. So yeah, Google Messages is the app that this works on. It's going to become standard on a lot of phones from this point onwards. And so like Samsung recently said that they will get rid of their app, their messaging app, and use Google Messages, which means RCS becomes the dominant format across Android phones. There's another technology out there that's relevant for direct publishing. It's called Google Business Messages. You will most likely have come across this if you've been on Google Maps and you've looked at a shop that you want to go to. And in the search box, in the profile of that company, you'll see a little circle that says, chat with us or message us. That is Google Business Messages, and it works through Google Maps at the moment, but there are going to be other entry points. So you will be interacting with brands using Google Business Messages a lot in the future. This is an example of what this looks like. So you can see here that there are, this is for a shop because it has to be located. You click on the chat, and then you've got this normal text interaction, but you can start to see that there's carousels there, and you can actually complete a transaction through that. The next piece of technology to be aware of, because in the US, obviously, iPhone is dominant, and probably in this community, a lot of you have got iPhones. RCS does not work on iPhones. Google would like it to, because then there's a standard across the board, and all the phones would interact with each other. But Apple have got their own. So Apple's business chat is how you would interact with brands using your iPhone. So these are some examples. It's a lot of shops and a lot of services. So you create this experience with a customer on their iPhone, predominantly American examples because of that dominance in the US. But it's not a particularly, well, it's rich. It's richer than text messages, but it's not as rich as some of the other formats. But it is coming, and it is out there, and you will start to come across it. So what I'm really trying to make the point here is that other industries are utilizing this development in messaging technology. This is an example of how you can get a ticket or a voucher, or you can order food, all delivered to your phone without having to have a specific app, all on the app that most people already have. Subway, this is a bit of an older example, but they also realized that it was financially viable and was a good investment. So they ran an RCS campaign, one of their first ones. Compared to text, they saw a conversion rate that was 140% higher. It is highly personal because it's on your device, and we're seeing a lot of advertising that would go on display ads being invested in messaging instead because of the data, because of the click-through, because of that conversion. So just to back that point up again, there was a report by Mobile Squared that estimated brands would spend $52.5 billion on RCS by 2028. So what we're seeing here is an incredible amount of money from advertising industry being put into messaging, which, if you look back over history, is usually a good bet that it's going to turn into something, because that's where advertisers want to be, and that's how a lot of us make money, through the advertising that's sold. Now, I haven't shown you any news examples. That's because there aren't really any. This is really new, and this is why when we started hearing about RCS and we started looking for news examples, we couldn't find any. There was an old CNN one that was from years ago, when RCS first came out, but we couldn't see any publishers who had adopted this. Not RCS, but we have seen some use of what we would term direct publishing in the industry. And it is being deployed to audiences. So the first example I wanted to show you is a really good example, and I've given the details there so that you can test it out for yourself. This is an organization called Infonull, who report on climate and environmental issues in the Nile Basin. And they're a collaborative organization. And we have worked with them because they had this concept to create a mobile magazine, which was really fascinating to us because they realized that they needed to send something that was high-quality journalism into a community that had very low bandwidth, where, here in the West, we get data bundled into our packages, but in Africa, they're paying for every megabyte of data separately. So the answer that they didn't initially have access to a bot on WhatsApp. They decided that WhatsApp was how they wanted to distribute it. And so what they created was a PDF magazine that was fairly low in file size, but that could be pushed out through WhatsApp. Now, the other reason they wanted it to be on WhatsApp was because it could then have a life of its own and be shared. And they solved a really obvious problem. They solved a problem that we'd been having working on messaging initiatives, which was how you can create kind of links within stories. Of course, if you create a PDF, you can put links into the stories, and you can make it incredibly interactive by sending people to your site as they click on things in the PDF if they want to, but also they could have a finishable experience that was that they could download on Wi-Fi or that they could download with using only a small amount of data. There are other tip lines. There are other messaging kind of editorial products out there. There's an initiative in India called the Ekta News Coalition, and they have created WhatsApp tip lines. WhatsApp tip lines are quite popular. They are supported by WhatsApp in a lot of countries, and they are a good way of countering mis and disinformation, because someone can simply forward something that they've seen to the tip line, and journalists on the other end will work on it and send it back. The idea there is that you are producing journalism and information to be shared in the format on the platform where it has been created. So if you see something on WhatsApp, you're going to want to counter that's misinformation. You need to counter it with something that is using that same format. We worked on a project, an early version of this in India for the 2019 elections, where you can see here we created a process for people to send links to us. And then we would ask them to confirm that they wanted it to be verified. And then we would go away, and we had a team of researchers who would work on this and then eventually be able to push a response back. And then what you see in the middle is this live card that someone could go and look at the verification work, and they could forward it on to friends and family, because in India, one of the particular problems was misinformation shared by grandparents in your family WhatsApp group, and if you were lower down the family rankings, you couldn't challenge them necessarily, but having another service that you could point them to and say, look, Granny, this is not correct. This service did it. That really helped. So that's WhatsApp, and that's some of the things that have been going on. But we can still create an even better, richer experience with this new technology. So I'm going to talk you through something that we've built. We've been working with a subsection of Cisco, the big technology company. It's WebEx. It used to be IMI, because they are the people that hook you up to the cell phone networks. So if you have one of these products, you have to deliver it via the mobile networks, and you can't do that yourself. You need to work with a company that has the relationships with all the networks. We also we were trying to describe the opportunities as I've done to you now, and we had a few screenshots, but probably some of you are having trouble imagining quite what it looks like. And this was our problem. We'd be explaining, oh, you can do transactions through this, but we actually realized that no one could picture it themselves because they'd never seen anything like this before. And when no one had done anything on news, talking to journalists and people in newsrooms about the opportunities, they couldn't imagine it either. So we've been working for the last months to create an example of of how this works, and it's a live example. And so I'm going to talk you through that process so that you can think about how you might be doing this in your own newsrooms or in your own work. So the first thing to talk about is triggers. The good kind of triggers, the triggers that set off an interaction with one of these editorial flows. So we can't ask questions, but I can ask you to raise your hands. Has anyone ever seen a QR code used on TV as a way of getting you to engage? Okay, a couple of you. We're starting to see this more and more often, I think, especially during the pandemic. QR codes had their moment. And so one of the triggers that we can do to create a kickoff flow for an editorial product is to use a QR code. You can put this in the paper, you can put it on a screen, you can display it on TV. So one of the things that we've imagined is if you have got a climate reporter doing a climate story on TV, at the end of the report they can say, and if you want to interact with our conversational product on your phone, scan the QR code and you can start talking to us. So we think this is going to be a really good and easy trigger, and it's something that everyone's familiar with, especially as they've probably all had to download some way of scanning a QR code. Another trigger is buttons. So you can embed buttons on your site, on your mobile page, and you click this and it will initiate an interaction. It will open up the messaging app on your phone and send the message, and that's how we'll trigger it. The other exciting thing is, and you may not, if you miss the fact that this is a mock-up, I will just remind you, I will just make that point again. This is a mock-up, but because there's not that many versions out in the wild, and this is quite close to it. At the moment, if you do a search and you get an ad, you can, this is full fact, you can have a subscribe, to subscribe to their newsletter or their service on there. The thing next to it, where it says chat with us, our fact checks at your fingertips, is kind of what this is going to look, is what you're going to be able to do soon. You're going to be able to launch a conversational flow. So if someone is searching for your publication, for your news organization, for a story that you've done, an ad could be served at the top, and someone can interact with your conversational product from the Google search screen, which is massive. It could be around fact-checking, it could be around storytelling. We don't know yet because there's not many examples and people need to start testing things. But this is really powerful to be able to launch chat from a search result. So this is what we've been working on, so you can actually start to see what this looks like. And I'm going to just talk you through this screen. So this is a screenshot from the live editorial product that we've created a demo for. On the left of the screen, this is when you click on the profile, this is what you get. So you get a nice header image where you could put some original, some of your photography. You could, this is your front page on messaging. You've got a space for your brand logo. On the right, you've got your name. You can describe your editorial service so people know what they are signing up for. And then you've got to have a certain other information around contacts, and your terms and conditions. The reason you have to do all of this is because you have to be verified in order to get your service approved by the various kind of not authorities, organizations that run the different products. So if you want to register for an RCS thing, you would register, I think, with Google, or Google Business Message are the same. And so you have to have certain things in place. That's important later, because we can build trust elements into this from the outset. This can become a trusted brand because it is verified, and it will be difficult for people to impersonate. So once you are up and running and you've been registered, you can start building something. So the way that we started building this is to map it out. So we use Miro a lot in our work to map out our own processes. What we wanted to do here is think about what does a conversational flow look like, and how do you translate that into something that would work. And actually, when you're writing it down, and you think this is going to work really well, one of the things that's really surprising is when you actually make it live and you realize how clunky your language is, and you have to really make it a lot more informal and in order to create the flow. So we started working on this, and then once it came to testing it, we changed so much of our language because it felt so static. So what you can see here is something that we've built for a story flow. We've got on the left the 3 different triggers that we wanted to have. So this is a QR code, also a text message to kick it off, or clicking a link. Once you do that, then the story bot starts up, and we imagine that you get a welcome screen. In future iterations, you don't want someone coming back to this and always receiving the same welcome. So you'd be able to say, if someone was coming back for a second go, or a third go, fourth go, you would give them a different welcome each time, or stop giving them a welcome at all after a certain amount of time. You then need to kind of think about the flows. So we need to have bot interactions, but then what are the triggers, and what are the buttons that we might include, and what is the content that you want to serve up, because you have to map this up. Would you like it to connect to a database? What's the database? How would that work? I think one of the things that we've learned in this process is that someone, as they're going through a conversational story flow, has to be able to kind of work out where they are in the flow. If it's too big, and it's like just a huge database, and you can add everything you could possibly want to onto it, people you lose where you are in the process, and I think you have to be able to kind of see it in your head. So what we do, once we've mapped this out, is that's when we start to connect it to the technology. So the flow that I just showed you, this then gets turned into something like this. So this is the flow built in a platform that we work with WebEx, that WebEx provide for us to build these narrative structures. And we have to turn that flow into this and build in all the loops and the things that if something goes wrong, takes you back to the beginning, and buttons, and we put in all of the assets. And this, once you've got to this point, you're pretty good to go. And actually, it's really easy to add new products and new flows to this. You can add things on. So one of the things that we've started to think about is if you've got 5 different stories, or you've got 5 stories in a subscription flow, how do you manage that interaction for someone? And so we're thinking about a concierge, your news products concierge, to guide your audience to the place that they need to be. Right, so this is, we're getting to the kind of meatier stuff now. That work that we put in to give information into that kind of landing page, that then translates to a verified, trusted brand. So you see that tick, that shows that it's been registered, it's secure, it's verified, it's no one else. And that gives the kind of safe peace of mind to someone that they are not being spammed. To get that tick, you have to have fulfilled a certain requirement. This is, then we've got our welcome. Unfortunately, our demo has a picture of me giving the welcome. But you can then see that we've got buttons. So we are not doing free-flowing text here. We can, but actually people like to just push buttons in order to go through things, and that's why we've gone with a button-only thing. Natural language processing is possible, but it's obviously a lot harder, and you need to have a lot more complex stuff in there. On the other side, we basically we get a lot of data, and I'll talk about data and metrics, which would be entirely the person creating this. It would be their data, no one else's. But the exciting thing here is that it's richer already. So we can have a 10-image carousel. Those images can all be GIFs as well. So we can, and remember, this is just in your text messaging app. That if you've got an Android phone, you've got already. If you've got iPhone, you can have this as well. So I'm going to show you some actual screen recordings now of the demo so you can see what it looks like. It's a bit of a complex screen share, so hopefully it will work. So I'll talk you through it. This is my phone. And I sent a text to trigger it, and then I get a response from the RCS service. So there's the welcome screen, and then I've got an option to select. I've got 2 options in this demo, a COVID-19 story flow or a subscription button. And I think, is it going to move? No, I'll move it. You push the COVID-19 story, and then this is what happens. So we've said, learn more about COVID-19. What do you want to start with? I want to know more about vaccines. Now, we're not going to get a story here. We're going to say, actually, we want to find out where our nearest vaccine clinic is. RCS allows you to share your location of your phone. It will connect to the database and send you a Google Maps link to the exact location of the vaccine center. So we can produce services here. We can do lots of different things with that. You could have sponsorship. You could have someone say, this is sponsored by a hardware store, and at the end of the flow, you get connected to go and find your roofing supplies. So that's a monetizable element of it. If we go back to the next, we can go back to the beginning, and we can choose something else. Choose vaccines again. This time, let's get an option. Let's look at how effective vaccines are. So now we're going to be able to share up some other rich content. It takes a moment so that the messages don't go out of date, and this is where we get that 10 image or 10 GIF carousel, and you can create a story in those 10 things. Commercial entities would use that to advertise products, but we thought that the application here is in a kind of breakdown of statistics and storytelling. The other thing that we can do that you can't do, you couldn't do before, is deliver videos. And I don't know if this is going to deliver videos now or an image. I can't remember it off by heart. But this is a way to drive the delivery of an image. It takes a few moments to download, and there's going to be some loud sound in a second, because we can play these video in screen. Obviously, this video would have been better optimized for widescreen. What we hope is eventually you'll be able to open up in the full view of your phone, but you can't yet. So what we've got here is optimized content for messaging. It's a very similar kind of feel to social in terms of its richness, but it's all delivered via this text messaging app. I'm just going to keep saying that over and over again. The other thing that we're really excited about here is that we believe doing this, introducing this into for a news organization, it can be paid for by itself. So yes, we can deliver storytelling through this process, but we can also take payments. And you can sell services. So you can sell your RCS service to your audience using a subscription flow. And so we've mocked up what a subscription flow could look like. So you initiate the bot. On this occasion, we're going to hit subscribe. And then you can have another carousel. So like you saw that storytelling carousel before, this time we're going to get 3, I was doing this in my hotel in Rome, so it was a bit slower. We got 3 subscription options here as a carousel. I can choose what that subscription is. I'm going to click monthly for this. And then if I go to the next screen, we say thank you for your monthly subscription. Now we're going to take your details. So now we start to do data collection on our subscriber, their first name, and then we've got their last name. We've already got their phone number because they can only have interacted with us using their phone. But we're going to use their email address so that we can send them confirmation of their subscription and do anything following up with them. This could be for their subscription to our regular service, or it could be something for RCS specifically. Put in an email, and then we choose how we want to pay. And we can put payment directly into the message stream. So on this occasion, we're going to choose a debit card. It will take you to a site. And then you can watch me try and type as smoothly as possible for the demo to put in a card. But what you're seeing here is, again, all within the app, we have created a subscription product that someone can go through the whole process to pay for. And it is run entirely by the organization who is delivering this service. It is not being run by anyone else. All of that data is your data. That relationship is between you and that person using the service. It is not anyone else. For the first time, we don't have a middleman between us and the audience, and so therefore we have a lot more of the power over our interaction, and our audience is empowered over their interaction with us. You've seen some of the content that we've been putting up here. What we have done at Fathom is we spend a lot of time working on content on other projects, and we've created something called Fathom Studio, which allows us to quickly create content that's optimized for social. What we will be able to do soon is create that same content, but for messaging. So here you can see we've developed a platform where you can choose your content style. In this case, we've got a chat thing which looks like a WhatsApp chat or a messaging chat as a way of telling a story or doing a fact check, and then we've got a regular debunk. We can make any. We can make explainers. We can make kind of entertainment rundowns. We can do anything we like. But the key here is that you can just put the information in very quickly, and it will spit out a video that you can then put into your service. Some of the brands who are running this as campaigns will spend months working on a single flow that will then just be rolled out. For the news industry, we've had to think differently, and that's why we've had to think about how we can make content very quickly so that the news isn't old. There is going to be, I think, like spot news, breaking news is going to be the hardest to deliver using this, but we will find ways to do that. I think what we could think about in the initial, for initial versions of this is things like a deep dive into climate journalism, or a deep dive into an election and showing up candidates, or election issues, something that has a closed narrative structure that we can populate. So everyone probably wants to know about metrics and data, and I've mentioned that you get your own data. The important point here is that with RCS specifically, there is no third party monetizing the data. So if you're putting stuff on Facebook or Twitter, or there are other people making money off your data, off your audience, with RCS they are not. It is just you who gets that data. The networks do know who you've communicated with, but they don't know anything about your flow. But they already know who's messaging anyway. So what do you get? You get a phone number, which becomes a unique ID. They have to use a phone number to interact with this. They don't have to give their name, but you know if someone is a repeat user. We know that something's been delivered to them. We know that something's been read, and we know when something has been read. So what that means is we can start to map out a timeline if we want to. So we know where people will drop out in a flow, which means we can improve the storytelling. Or we can work out what is more popular. Again, that data is just for us. We can look at what messaging content has been shared back. So we can, as you saw in the subscription flow, we've got first name, last name, email address. But we could actually we could solicit any information that we want by asking our audience, and they don't have to share it if they don't want to. If they do share it, then we're able to use that. So recurring visitors, we can create flows that respond to someone coming back. We can get anything that we ask for as long as someone wants to share it with us. And that's, again, where that kind of trusted news brand comes in. There's just another bit of technical thing that I wanted to explain. So I've been talking about our work with Cisco, which is their messaging product is owned by their WebEx division. They are a CPaaS, and I can't remember what CPaaS acronym is off the top of my head, but they are the service provider that they have the relationships with the Vodafones, with the EEs, BTs, service providers, and everything is hooked up to them. We cannot do anything without someone helping us with that. We cannot get to the networks ourselves. On the left, you'll see the news organizations. So you run your editorial product, you are responsible for your content, you think about the storytelling, you run the advertising, you take your data and analytics and do whatever you want with it. We see our role here as being the middle people, not the middle people between you and your audience, but between the journalism, because our background is in journalism, and turning it into a technical product that delivers the vision of that journalism to your audience. So what we do is we have the relationship with Cisco and build your flows into narrative technical structures that can work. And it doesn't take very long. This is not a month-long process. This can be days to get something up and running. As you probably want to spend a bit more time working out what product you want to deliver to your audience, but the technical time is not long now. So we will build your narrative structures into that system and make sure it works, and then we will go through a testing process with you. So we've been trying to imagine what it looks like to support newsrooms to deliver conversational flows and messaging products to their audience. So we think that we've mapped it out, and we think that there is a lot of work that needs to be done to think about the news products and platforms that you want. So your product is ultimately what you are delivering, not the service that you're delivering it on. But you do need to think about what platforms. You need to decide if you want to monetize this. Is your content flow going to be sponsored, and that's how you're going to do it? It's supported by someone. Or is it going to have paid for membership? Are you going to have transactions in your flow? Is there going to be advertising? There are new models out there where you don't have to pay to have this hosted. you just do a revenue share with the hoster. We would agree a deal with that service provider, and then we will build the campaign in consultation with the newsroom, help you test it, and launch it. We've not done this yet because no one's done it yet, but we're trying to work out all of the pieces that have to happen to allow the news industry to get up and running. I'm going to finish early because it's really hard talking just by myself. But before we finish, you may be, some of you have probably thought, what does this cost? And we didn't want to shy away from that. So it's a really difficult question to answer because it depends how big you want to go. It depends what you want to do. It depends how long it's going to take to build. So I haven't, I haven't built in any of the, time it takes to create this, but I have been able to kind of give you an indication of the actual costs to the cost amount. So for RCS, you just have to pay a service platform cost. So that flow that I showed you, the technical flow, that has to be hosted and it has to be hooked up, and there's a monthly fee for that. With RCS, there is no message cost except in the UK. So in most countries, RCS has not been charged for. In the UK, they're starting to work out how to charge for it, and so there are charges. But I think almost anywhere else in the world, you do not have to pay per message cost. If you compare that to WhatsApp, you have to pay for the platform and monthly costs. You also have to pay per conversation, and a conversation is 24 hours. So I think it's about 5 pence, but all of their prices are listed. But 5 pence per conversation flow, if you've got a few thousand, it can be quite stressful. You can build in caps, but you don't want someone who's like a repeat customer to come up against, oh, sorry, we're at capacity today because we spent enough money. It's kind of open-ended. So that's why RCS is potentially a better option for the news industry, because you're not going to be whacked with a massive bill at the end that you can't afford. And then there are directories for offering ad revenue shares. So there are kind of cost-neutral ways of doing this, and you just make the money. Obviously, you are giving your audience, there's a kind of compromise in terms of your data or your audience for that. So I've just got 2 slides left, and now I really wanted to just kind of sum up what I've been talking about here. So with RCS or our other messaging services, you can create a single product. It is white labeled to work with, work with your different brands. You can have multiple ones of these. You can have a concierge guiding your audience through your products. You own the majority of data and metrics. It depends a little bit on the platform, but with RCS, I think it's quite clear what you own. There are not necessarily, I don't know if Chartbeat and Parsley are set up to deal with the metrics for conversational flows yet, but someone should start thinking about this, because that's going to be data that's really useful to you. You control the advertising. You leverage your existing infrastructure for advertising. You can choose how to run advertising on this. I think it's time to think about this now, because it really feels, I worked in social media and newsrooms in the early days, and it was those days where we weren't moving fast enough as an industry, and other people got in there and took all of the rewards and took all of the data, and this is now one of those times where you will all be working, if you're a journalist working in a newsroom, this will be one of your products. I'm so sure of that. Better to decide and look into it now, even if you don't want to do it, than look in 2 years when everyone else is doing it and say, wish we'd have done it then. As an early adopter, there has got to be some funding available to start building this stuff out, to create case studies. And I think if we move now, then we've got an opportunity. So our interest in this is we just were sitting on this, and we wanted to tell people that we think that this is really cool for the industry. We want to start exploring what can be done. We basically paid to do all of this work ourselves in order to come up with a demo so that we can show people what the opportunities are. And if afterwards, come and find us or find us on Twitter and book a time to have a look at it, and we can let you play with it on our phones because we've got it set up on our phones. But we want to explore the limits of what can be done. We kind of want you to say, oh yeah, but actually I've got a use case for this. Is it possible to do that? We need that inspiration so that we can start pushing it and expanding it. We want to start creating the first direct publishing products to be out there in the wild, and we want to work with newsrooms to do that. And we would like to explore funding opportunities for that development. I think that there are some there. So we're going to finish. A few minutes early, but I want to just end by saying, this is where your audience is. Your audience are on messaging. I think that you should try and find this opportunity to go where your audience are. Thank you very much. That's my email and Twitter, and we can't linger here, but if you want, we'll go outside the hotel, and if you want to have a look, we can show you on our devices there. We'll also start tweeting some of this out, and we'll put some posts up, and we'll make it very available. I don't think we're allowed to do questions, but you can shout it out, and I won't acknowledge it. But we can meet outside if you've got questions outside the hotel. Thanks very much, everyone.